Now let's look at, this is the Rambam. It's the laws of mourning, but it also deals at the end with many laws that govern human interaction, like visiting the sick and comforting the mourner, etc. So let's have a look. Let's just read straight from the. It's halacha number 2. Schar halavaya, to accompany your guest as he leaves. Meruba min hakoil, that's the greatest of all of the above that he identified. V'hu achoik shechakakei Avram Avinu, and this is the statute, the law which Avram instituted, v'derech hachesed shenag bo, on the way of kindness with which he conducted himself. Meichel ovrei drachim, he would give food to the wayfarers, u'mashka osim, and give them to drink, u'malava osim, and accompanying them as they leave. Then he says, v'kedei lachnos orchim mikabalas pnei hashchina, it's greater to receive the divine presence. It's greater to be hospitable to guests than to be a host to the divine presence. Shene'amar, as it says, this week's parsha, Vayar v'hinei shleisha nashim. Hashem had appeared to Avraham, and Avraham sees 3 people that he thinks they're travelers. Actually, they're guests in this. They're angels in the guise of men, but he thinks they're travelers. And you know the rest of the story. He asks God to excuse him, and he leaves. So we learn from here that it's greater to receive guests than to receive the Shekhinah. The Rambam concludes, Omru Chachamim, our sages said, Kol she'enim alava, he who doesn't accompany his guests, kilu shefech damim, is like he shed his blood. Now we have a couple of questions. In order to understand the question, appreciate it, look at the bottom of the page. This is the Gemara. Gemara in Tractate Shabbos, which is the source of the Rambam. Everything the Rambam writes is from the Gemara, right? It's all, he rules according to the final ruling. So Omar Rabbi Yehuda Omar Rav, Rabbi Yehuda the son of Rav said, greater is it to receive guests than to receive the divine presence. T'chsiv, as the pasuk says, our parsha, Vayomer, and he said, Hashem, my dear God, if now I have found favor in your sight, al nosaver, please don't go away, but I need to leave. So I'm leaving you. But if you like to stay, please stay. So we see from here that what? He leaves God and he goes and attends to the guests. Now what's our question? The proof text, the pasuk that the Rambam brings as a proof for this extraordinary statement, that it's greater to receive guests than the Shekhinah, please tell me in English, what's the proof text? That is, as it is written, what does he say? The end of the first paragraph of halacha number 2, right there on the page. What's the proof text? As it says in Bereshis 18:3, in Genesis, what does it say? What's the proof text? You can read it to me?
And he said, Lord, if now I have found...
No, the Rambam. Not the Gemara. What's the Rambam's proof text?
Wait for him while he tended to his guests appropriately.
No, the proof text. The proof text, the end of law number 2, the Rambam, top of the page. What's the proof text he brings? The end of the first paragraph on the page that you have in front of you.
You mean whoever does not accompany them is considered as if he shed blood?
No, he brings a proof text from the Torah. What's the proof? It's a statement that nobody would dream up in their wildest dreams. So it's got to be proven from this story. So what's the proof text? The last line, you have the same? The last line of halacha number 2, first paragraph.
And he saw and behold, there were 3 people.
Yeah. proof as it states in Genesis, Bereshis, chapter 18, pasuk number 3, and he saw, and behold, there were 3 people. What's the proof text the Gemara brings? Is it the same proof text? What does the Gemara bring? As it is written, what's the Gemara's proof text?
And he said, Lord, if now I have found favor in your sight, please pass not from your servant.
Right. So, his source, this is his source. Why does he change the proof text and not bring the source which the Gemara brings? It's not the same verse. It's the same paragraph. It's the same story. But it's a different verse. This is your source. Why are you changing it? And it's not just a question of why he's changing the source. It's really the source which the Gemara brings makes sense. The source which the Rambam brings is not a proof. Look, let's examine critically. The Gemara says, what's the proof that it's greater to receive guests than the divine presence? That Avram said to God, excuse me, I've got to go. Now that's a proof. He leaves God and he runs. What's the proof that Rambam brings? And he saw 3 people? That doesn't tell us anything. It's what he went and did. There's no proof that he saw them that tells us that it's greater to receive guests than the divine presence. The proof is that he said to God, excuse me, I've got to go, and then he went. So our question is we're really scratching our head here. Rambam, you change the proof text and you substitute it for words in the narrative that aren't even a proof. Question's clear? Why does the Rambam do that? Very powerful question. If you learn Rambam, you know that that if he brings a proof text, it's always the same one that the Gemara brings, because that's where he's getting it from. And you're changing it, and you bring a quotation that doesn't even tell us what the point. He saw. No, he saw. Maybe he didn't go. If you don't read the rest, you don't know what happened. From those words alone, you have no proof. He saw 3 people. It's because of that he said, excuse me, I've got to go. Oh, that's a proof. Just seeing them doesn't tell us anything. Why is the Rambam using that as the proof? It doesn't prove it's the point. The Gemara does, and that's your source. So stick to your source. So it's a double question. Why change it? And then change it for something which does not prove the point. So it appears. That's question number 1. Question number 2, a simple question. At the end of the first paragraph, what did it say there? Whoever does not, our sages said, end of law number 2.
Whoever does not accompany them is considered as if you shed blood.
If you don't accompany a guest like you shed their blood, what does this mean? So the commentaries say, that's a pretty heavy statement. It's not nice. He could some criticism. Murder? That's a big statement. That's like hyperbole. You shed their blood. What does this mean? So some commentators explain, bottom line, accompany means you got to walk them to a certain degree, see that they are on the well-traveled highway. Let's say you live a little bit secluded, and God forbid something happens. The person left your house, and they got ambushed. It's like you killed them, because had you accompanied them to a place of safety, it wouldn't have happened. That's what some of the that's what it means. If you don't accompany your guests, like you shed their blood, in a case where they're going to get killed, etc. So the Rebbe asks, this is beyond uncommon. People live generally in cities, and they're not going through forests. They're going through, and he says, whoever doesn't. Like he says this in every case, not just in a case where, God forbid, something happens, the worst, and your guest gets killed. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say, if you don't accompany your guest and you live isolated and he gets killed, you're responsible. No, okay. He says, whoever, you're living in the heart of Hampstead, next door to a police station. You have security outside your house. No difference. You don't walk to your guest to the door like you shed their blood. Why?
Shame.
Oh, so why? Yeah, I'm going to get you. So the answer all to the above, and one more question. One more very strong question. This is a very powerful, powerful question. In the end of the day, Avram did the wrong thing. Because they weren't guests. He thought they were. He thought they were human beings. It was a very hot day and they need food and drink and shelter. But they were not. They were angels in the guise of men. They were not blaming him, but objectively it was wrong. You don't leave God for angels because they don't need. They don't need what you have to give them. They pretended to eat. They pretended to drink. Which we learned, by the way, in brackets, that when you go to a place, you follow their custom, unless it violates some moral, or halacha. But if it's just a question of custom, when in Rome, it's rooted in the Torah. Halach, azal l'malkim, so that he does l'nimusa. He should you come to a shul, you come to a community, don't stick out. I'm different, better. You do what everybody else is doing. At any rate, that's just aside. But he thought that they were what? They were people. But at the end, they wasn't. So God set him up to do something wrong. It's very difficult to accept that at the end of the day, okay, we learned something from it, but objectively, had he known, he would never have done it. Angels. And even stranger, Torah is a Torah of truth. So you and I, for all generations, are learning from Avram's story that it's greater to receive guests than the divine Shekhinah. That story never happened. He never received guests in that story. He received angels. So the model is a fantasy. It's what he thought. This is the Torah of truth. Very unsettling. And it's not fair for Avram. He was set up to do something which objectively should not have done. How do you know? Okay. He didn't know, and he's no blame. He's not going to get punished, obviously. But it's just wrong. And Avram's a tzaddik. Why would God set him up to do the wrong thing, or anybody? So the answer to all of the above is, as Ronnie was saying, it's a very profound message. The essence of hospitality we're learning here is not the physical stuff that we give. You know what your guests want from you more than food and drink? They want your attention. They want to feel special. It's the intangible. It's the intangible. And where's that expressed? Walking them to the door. Imagine you're sitting at the table and the meal is over and your guests kind of leave and you're busy in it. They slink out and they feel like, to some degree, they invite us because they have to, but we're really a burden. They would rather we didn't come. So that is a kind of a murder because you shamed them. You've shamed them. For a moment, they'd like to be swallowed up, and disappear. Shame is murdering. Our sages say when a person's shamed, gets red and then white, the blood drains. That's death. The blood spills down. That's why the Rambam say that's the meaning of any guest. You don't walk to the door. It's not because, God forbid, he gets killed. That's a scenario we don't even chas v'sholem. It's any guest. You can serve him the finest food and wine, but if you don't walk them to the door and make them feel like you're really welcome, give them that covered, they feel that they were an intrusion. And that's the essence. The essence is the conversation, the good feeling, to make them feel like they're really welcome and they're royalty, and you're privileged to have them as a guest. And that answers all the questions. The Rambam's proof text, we said, what kind of proof text is this? That he's looking out. He didn't do anything yet. He didn't act upon it yet. So what's the proof text? Answer. It isn't about the actions. It's about the interest. The fact that Avraham, while God is revealed to him, is on the lookout. Maybe someone needs me. No, that's it. That's the hospitality. Right there. The attitude, the genuine interest. He's looking. Oh, that's it. That he ran and gave them food and drink, of course, that's secondary.
To promote that there's only one God.
Pardon?
He's speaking to. To promote to them that there's only one God whom he's speaking to. Why is he bringing guests in also?
Yeah, I'm going to bring your point. I'm going to add that to this whole thing. Because Hashem's the greatest. How can you put anything before God? So since you mentioned it, we should say, because He's connecting to Hashem deeper by inviting these guests. When Hashem is revealed to you, that's exhilarating and it's wonderful and could do anything be better. But when you put aside that personal experience and you reach out to another human being, he thought they're idolatrous, and much more so another Yid, so you should know you're really connecting to God deeper, in essence, than having that experience. So that's a profound message here also. It's all part of it. Which in simple words means, consider, a person can cloister himself his whole life, or try to, as much as he can, learning and davening. It's holy. He's close to Hashem. No question about it. But the emes is, if he goes out and he reaches another Yid and brings him to his house, and I got to tell you, the conversations can't be only Torah. That you're going to talk about their lives, really, and get involved. It's not such a holy experience. You should know that you're connecting to Hashem much deeper that way. That's what the Eibishter wants. That's where the essence lies. Not in my experience, but in carrying out Hashem's deepest will, and that is that every Yid, and by extension the whole world, be connected. You follow? So it's not less, it's really more, even though in terms of his experience, of course, it's less. Busy with them and serving and cutting the food and serving, pouring the wine and having conversations about whatever. The Eibishter is really there deeper. The delight, the pleasure, the investment, the connection is far deeper. So this answers all of our questions. Why he changes the proof text. Why in the end of the day, he did do the mitzvah of achnasas orchim. Why? The angels didn't need his food and drink, that's true. But they got his attention. And who better than angels knew how beloved Avraham is for God? They knew this. So this great Avraham is devoting himself to us. They were complimented. They got the intention, which is a spiritual, attitudinal thing that they got. So taka, the food and drink, they didn't need. But that we're learning now is not the essence of hospitality. So was he mekayim the mitzvah? He was. It was a true model. And it's actually the most important model for us. For sure, you've got to serve your guests the best. How do you serve it? That's what counts. The smile, the making feel good. That's the essence. Now, a final thing that needs to be understood, which the commentaries also ask. How did Avram know this? We know it says on the Torah. It says Avram left Hashem, ran to receive the guests. So, and the Torah doesn't say not critical of him, so it's got to be a model. But so we have the story to tell us. But how did he know? How did he know? The emissaries, we could ask even a bigger question the commentaries ask. Like this is like a scary question. When Hashem told Avraham, take your son and kill him. How do you know it was really God speaking? It's a voice in his head. People hear voices. How can you trust that? How can you trust that to the point that he was ready, mamish, to shecht his child? This is not a small matter. The answer at the end of the day is, you and I asked that question because how do we know? Like the story we just read now. To shecht the Yid, it's got to come straight from God. I mean, to help a Jew, even an angel, do a good thing. But how do we know it's coming directly from God? You and I really can't know. We can't. Could be voices in our head. But Avram, this is a tzaddik. Avram had completely surrendered himself. We have to appreciate that. Sages say about the patriarchs, it's true of tzaddikim, they are called a merkava, a chariot, or a vehicle. If you see a car driving down the street, and it's the tinted windows, okay, nowadays actually you have automatic, but before automatic, and the car's turning, there's someone inside there that's turning it. Or if even automatic, someone programmed it. It doesn't go by itself. It's got to be programmed. The forefathers were like that. They'd so surrendered themselves that if his instinct told him, sorry, I gotta go, that was the emes. Because when your ego is completely surrendered, then you become a natural instrument for what's right. It just resonates and you go with it. It's not true of you and I, because I could have the wrong feelings. But the tzaddik trusts his instinctual feelings, and he knows they're true because there's no ego, there's no agenda, it's all pure. We found this by tzaddik. In fact, we conclude with this. The Rebbe himself said this. And the story of the build up to the Yom Kippur War, that whole summer, where the Rebbe was saying, gather the children and the terrible, to nullify the decree and urgency and begging and gatherings by the Kot all over. It was such a public thing that he had to kind of address it. So he said, all he said was, there's a thing like you can prophesize and not knowing that you're prophesying. It can happen to children, anybody. That's what he said. But really for the chassid, what he's saying is, did the Rebbe know? Maybe he didn't. Doesn't matter. It just has to be done. He trusts that tzaddik goes with his instinct, gather kids. Because when you're plugged in and there's no ego, you're an instrument for the truth. And it does apply to us to a certain degree. The less, it's true in every area in life, even not religious, business problems or anything. Relationships, everything. To the degree we can put the self aside, transcend self, the more we're going to be objective and give the right solution. But the moment there is a personal agenda, and the more it is, we're going to cloud it. Which is why most often you ask a third opinion. Because I got my agenda here. What's really better for the business or the kid or the relationship? I'm clouded. That's why you want a third opinion. But you can't always have that, and you will live through life every second making decisions. So the message here is, the more humble, the less it's about me winning, about me getting, the brownie points, about me getting the upper hand or the last word. It's more about the objective truth, the more successful we're going to be in every area of life. That's one of the messages from this story. Okay, Yidden. Have a wonderful day. Good Shabbos.